Hey, y'all. Welcome back to the Overflow Podcast, where we're all about living in the overflow of God's power and presence in our everyday lives. I'm Eli Austin, and as always, I'm joined by my good friend and co-host, Pastor Wayne Sutton. We're closing out the book of Romans. It's been a long time coming, but Romans 15 and 16 may feel like Paul is wrapping things up, but there's still a lot here about what it means to walk through our everyday lives as Christians. Pastor Jerry brought us back to what the gospel should produce in us: spiritual maturity, unity, patience, hope, community. All of it ultimately is victory over the enemy. So today we're walking through Romans and we're asking us what should look different in ourselves. Now that we're through Romans, should we be more patient? Are we building people up? Are we actually walking in hope? Or are we more discerning about who is shaping our lives? So, Wayne, let's get into it. I think it's such a beautiful way to wrap up Romans.
Yeah, it is. Romans 15:1. We then who are strong ought to bear with those who are weak and not to please ourselves. Really, I love that because I know Paul was talking to the mature, strong Christians here, and he was telling them how to deal with the people that are growing in their faith. But when I read it, I see something just a little different. I'm like, where I'm strong, I can bear with those who are weak. But where I'm weak,
I need
to have somebody that's strong, because we know one person, even spiritually mature people, have areas of like weakness.
Yes.
So this was so good, I thought. So there's not this one person. In the past, I've counseled and coached. And we'll go back to several years ago when I was doing it like 20 hours a week. And there were so many pastors that came to me. There were so many Christian leaders that came to me, and they were like, I have nowhere else to go. Because the facade that they're perfect, that everything's great. And we have to realize that we all have these places of weakness and strength. And I love this, bear with them. That doesn't mean it's always going to be easy.
Yes.
Somebody's, bear with me for a minute, but that is, I think, the call. That first verse there, Romans 15:1, just really spoke to me about the whole passage, the whole book of Romans, actually.
Yeah. It's funny that you said that, because I was sort of reading and we have it breaking out in our show notes. We've got segments in segment 1 and maturity. I think, when we hear maturity, we immediately go to their strength. They understand everything, but really true maturity is understanding that you have areas of weakness. We are all human. Mm-hmm. So regardless of how mature you are, your true maturity is understanding that we all have areas of weakness and we need others at that time. And this really brings the whole picture together of community, that what Paul's trying to sort of, he weaves through in Romans 15, but he's talking about the church as a whole. And that is really true maturity, is understanding that you're not going to be strong at all times, but when you're not, you're going to have others to step up for you. And the same will happen when they're not strong. And it's a beautiful way to sort of put a bow on this.
Yeah. And it's one of the questions in here. I love this. Are we creating a church culture? And I believe we are at Seaside, but I believe we got to maintain that intentionality to do it. Are we creating a church culture, and I'd even say a personal culture inside our own personal life, where people have room to grow? Where people have room to grow. It's like Jerry said the other day, he said, I can be out and we leave church and somebody's out there and they're just talking, and different cuss words are coming out of their mouth because they're still growing in that area. Or maybe that's, listen, we're not sitting there shaming someone. I remember one of the first people I led to the Lord, literally after the prayer, they're like, where the blank can I get baptized? They were like so excited for God. And I didn't say, oh, you got to get saved again. You just said a cuss word. But the point is, do we make room for people to grow? And I think that's a question every day, especially being a father for 5 kids, but 4 at home. Am I giving them room to grow? Am I giving my friends room to grow. So it's so important in the church today.
What a great way to end Romans and think about that as we approach VBS week. Creating space for the children to grow closer to Jesus. That's the goal.
So good.
So there's a really cool correlation there as we wrap up this up and we're in VBS week. There's a lot of energy here, but I think it's a beautiful way for us to really continue to be reflective. That's the one area or the word that has continued to come back to me as we walk through Romans, and we've been in Romans a while, but the word reflective. I know you and I, we always use the word intentional here, or intentionality on the podcast, but for me, it's been a very reflective season as we walk through Romans and think about, yes, I've made strides in my life and we're making strides in our families, but am I truly reflecting on my growth, my maturity, how I walk out in the public? How am I carrying Christ the way that I should?
Yeah, that's so good. And you mentioned that about the VBS. Number one, you're watching this and you didn't get there either as a volunteer or you didn't bring a child, a grandchild, neighbor's child, bring somebody. It was amazing last night. Now you're talking about energy. There was energy there last night. It was so good, and it was just so good to see those children just being loved on and learning to love Jesus. So,
yes,
but yeah, they're in their simple faith. They're what some may call immature faith, but my goodness, is to Jesus is everything, and that faith is growing. We get to honor that and give them room to grow. And as Jerry said before, he doesn't mind handprints on a wall. He doesn't mind, children make a mess good. That means they're in the house of the Lord. It was so exciting last night.
And that goes perfectly into sort of what we also talked about in Romans is unity. Unity is the preference. Unity is bigger than everything else. And it doesn't mean, though, that we all come from different backgrounds. And like we look at VBS, right? We've got children that come from different walks of life, from different cultures, from different upbringings. But we're here like you just said, Pastor Jerry, we are together in the house of God. And that's the most important piece of this. It doesn't mean that we have to agree on everything, but we are unified through Christ.
Yeah, that's so good. So good. Yeah, and when we get, when you think about unity, there's another thing I think is really important. And you think about unity, Jerry made a good point. We don't have to agree to be unified on all. We don't have to agree on all things to be in unity. And I think that is so amazing. And people look at it as there's two ways of looking at that. Well, I think the improper way is saying, well, I'll let my beliefs, I'll hide my beliefs, I'll discount them just so we can get along. That's not what it's about. True unity is, keeping the main thing, as Jerry preached on a few weeks ago, and not focusing on the non-essentials. But I love the fact that I'm in a church of different denominational backgrounds, different belief systems that came into this, and then we're all growing together, because that is the only way to learn. If you only see Jesus as, if Jesus never challenges you, I just did a video on this earlier. If you're never challenged by your version of Jesus, okay, are you really following the true Jesus? He'll challenge us. And it's the same way when unity in the church. Unity means we're all going to serve Christ. We're all going to love one another. We're all going to share the gospel, and we're going to focus on the essential, not the non-essentials. But sometimes we learn from the non-essentials, and I think that's growing.
It is. It absolutely is. And it just comes back to, I think, when I was reading through the end of this, and it's about finding a place that you can grow together. And that's what we've tried to create at Seaside. And I think that's part of what we're trying to do here with the Overflow podcast is create a space where you can walk through life together. Because to your point, there's going to be non-essentials. There's going to be essentials, but you have to walk through that with someone, with a community. Maybe it's not a specific individual, but with a support group around you to really grow in your maturity, to grow in your spiritual maturity. And that's really what, it comes down to, is if you can have this, and it sort of goes into what Pastor Jerry then talked about, the difference between happiness and joy, right?
Yes.
Happiness is like what's around you, but joy really comes from within you. So you need to get with a group that you can walk with, so you can grow this relationship, what's inside of you, so you can have true joy, not just, oh, I'm happy because my situation's great, like getting true joy. And I think I won't go into too much detail, but I've, in the last little bit, I have true joy. Like there's things in my life that have changed. There's true joy. And it's like, those are prayers that have been answered that we've been working.
Sure.
That you don't feel that if it's just circumstantial all the time.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And remember, and this is exactly what he said about happiness is the happening around you.
Yes.
Goodness, that can go up and down every moment of the day.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I was telling, I think David or someone asked yesterday, how was your day? And I'm like, well, Brian, man, I was like, ugh. It was just like, oh, wow. But my joy was God brought me these opportunities, even if I'm like overwhelmed, and I get to go in tonight and just like VBS and just like see the church grow and see people love. So the joy was greater. That joy of the Lord was greater than the outside, situations. And I think that's so important, because whatever person watching this right now, whatever you're going through, God's there. And there's and God, not only is God there, but in most cases, I would say God already has somebody in the body of Christ that can walk with you through that, can lift your head up, lift your hand up, and just walk with you and give you some encouragement. That is so important. But you only find that in, there's not unity if there's not a unified body. There's not unity if there's not, you can't do this alone.
Yes.
I think that's the biggest key. You can't do it alone. And if you could, why would you want to? Yeah.
And it really was God's true intention, was for us to walk through it together. That's really what it's about. And, when it comes back to community, I think this is also where you can start to unravel or sort of peel away your calling. And Pastor Jerry talked a little bit about that, as we sort of get through this. Find your calling, and community matters. And I think as you find a community, you start to realize your calling, because you're spending time and you start to see, okay, how people interact. That community helps you to find your calling. And there's a lot of that.
That's really good.
That I didn't find my well, of course, coming from business, I might have had my understanding what I was called to do, but then when I fell into the community of Seaside, I found this space in being able to do something that, if you told me 4 years ago that I would have been doing this podcast with you, I would have said, you're crazy. So until I found the community, I didn't find my calling. So that's good. It's really interesting.
That's so good. And I think that's so important, because I know for even people at Seaside have said, Wayne, what's my purpose? Where am I heading? What has God got for me? And we talked about, we're not a church of cliches, but we have communities, circles of community. Break out of that circle. Yes. I mentioned it Wednesday night. I said, I was speaking to the men, but same for the women. Women are better at this than men. Yeah. And that is building a community. And I told the men, I said, hey, when was the last time us as men got together and prayed over each other?
Yeah.
Real, raw, situational prayers, and lifted one another up. But also, I agree with you. I think that's where I never thought about that. Your calling is kind of formed by the community you're in. That was good.
And it comes from, like what you said, truly praying for one another, encouraging one another. And when you have a community, a safe space, you're more apt to be vulnerable, which then, to your point, creates true raw emotion, true, real, impactful prayer. Not at this surface level, hey, I'm afraid to share everything, but letting someone pray for you and truly understand your situation. Those are the moments where you really start to feel like, okay, here I'm called to this, and I'm getting some direction. But it all starts with a community. It starts with a safe place. And it ends, Romans ends with the victory. God of peace will crush Satan under your feet. And God is able to establish his people through the gospel. And I think it's important to go back to establish his people, not establish you, not establish one person, but establish his people. So it is always, there's always a drawback to community. And are we building a true community? It's not a solo journey.
That's good. That's so good. And I think that's the opportunity we all have at Seaside. Just, we've said it before, get out, find someone. And maybe you're watching this and you're not even going to Seaside or whatever church you're at. Find a community there. I love I love people that come and say, hey, you want to start visiting on we go to this church. We're not leaving this church. There's several days say we're not leaving this church, but we're going, that's our Sunday, that's our home church. We're going to come on Wednesday night for Bible studies.
Yes.
We're going to come, and I'm like, great, go wherever. Just find a community that you can connect with and show that level of maturity by growing and helping others grow.
Because that's what it really comes down to. God is meant for all of us to grow as Christians, not Seaside and Life Point and
that's right.
Here, Lions Church or Center City. We're supposed to grow together. And I love how even we have sunrise service, we get together, churches get together as one. There should be more of that. And that is really what we should be doing. And because it comes down to, let's just recap this thing. What we've talked about really throughout Romans is mature believers build people up. So are we really doing that as a community? Unity is bigger than anything. God's patience should shape our patience, right? He's been patient with us. Are we truly being patient with others?
That's right.
The God of hope fills us with joy and peace. And remember that every believer has a calling, but we need people to understand that. So as we sort of wrap up today, we wrap up Romans, it leaves us with more than just information, right? It leaves us with a challenge to live what we've actually learned. Are we applying it to our lives, or are we just reading it to read it? And I went through some of those things that we just sort of talked about, but Jesus, it all comes back to Jesus has already won the victory. Are we able to take that and walk that out and carry and establish the gospel in our lives? I think if we kind of reflect, right? My word of Romans is reflect on Romans. What is this built in you? What has changed? What still needs to change, right? Truly be having reflected. Where do you need to grow in maybe grace or obedience? And maybe it's just a simple prayer of, Lord, establish me in the gospel. Help me build others up, walk in hope, and stay grounded in your truth. That's pretty simple.
So good.
But it's so powerful. So, think back, truly reflect on Romans. We've spent a lot of time in it. So I encourage you to go back a little bit longer, spend a little bit longer on it and just reflect on what you've learned. But most importantly, this week is about VBS. It's about the children. So I just want to say thank you. I am not able to be there at this VBS season, but I want to thank all of those that are helping, that are volunteering, that are spending time with the children. That is why we are here. It is about building the future and bringing those children closer to Christ. So as always, stay tuned in. We'll catch you on the next one. Join us with VBS. Come see us at Sunday service. And as always, if this episode encouraged you, please share it with someone. We appreciate you. We love you guys. And we'll catch you on the next one, the Overflow Podcast. Have a blessed rest of your week. Take care.